The story of the People's Temple, a name now synonymous with unimaginable tragedy, began not in the remote jungles of Guyana, but in the seemingly ordinary landscape of 1950s Indiana. It's a story rooted in the American experience, a reflection of the social and political currents that shaped the nation. Indiana at this time was a place deeply divided by race and inequality. The echoes of segregation resonated throughout communities, creating a palpable tension and a yearning for change. This environment of stark contrast and social injustice would become the breeding ground for the Temple's initial appeal. It was in this fractured society that Jim Jones, a charismatic and ambitious young preacher, founded his church in Indianapolis in 1955. He possessed a unique ability to connect with people, offering them a vision of hope and a sense of belonging that was often absent in their daily lives. He initially called it the Wings of Deliverance, a name that spoke to the promise of salvation and escape from the harsh realities of the world. The church started modestly, but its message resonated deeply with those who felt marginalized and disenfranchised. He preached racial equality and social justice, a radical message for the time, particularly in the deeply segregated Midwest. Jones challenged the status quo, advocating for a society where all people were treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their race or background. The church soon evolved and became the People's Temple Full Gospel Church, attracting those disillusioned by mainstream society and drawn to Jones's message of inclusivity and social change. It was a place where people from different walks of life could come together and find common ground. Jones offered more than just sermons. He provided tangible assistance to those in need, establishing soup kitchens, shelter, and legal aid. The temple became a lifeline for many, a beacon of hope in a world often filled with despair. It was a place of belonging, where people felt valued and seen, regardless of their circumstances. Jones's early work earned praise from politicians and community leaders, who recognized the positive impact he was having on the lives of so many. He was seen as a force for good, a champion of the downtrodden. But beneath the surface of this seemingly benevolent movement, his ideology began to subtly shift. He blended Christianity with socialist and communist ideas, creating a unique and increasingly unorthodox worldview. He started warning of an impending apocalypse fueled by the anxieties of the Cold War era and the ever-present threat of nuclear annihilation. He claimed only he could lead his followers to safety, to a socialist paradise, free from the evils of the outside world. Fear and the promise of salvation became inextricably intertwined, solidifying his control over his increasingly devoted followers. As scrutiny increased in Indiana, fueled by rumors and concerns about his methods, Jones made the decision to move his congregation to Redwood Valley, California, seeking a more receptive environment where he could operate with greater freedom. He strategically chose the area for its supposed safety from nuclear attack, framing the move not as an escape, but as a necessary step for survival in a dangerous world. In California, the temple's influence and membership exploded, attracting even more followers and setting the stage for the tragic events that would ultimately define its legacy. But even amidst this growth and apparent success, the dream of a perfect society was already beginning to twist into something darker, something far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. What began as a movement for justice and equality was slowly, insidiously warping into a nightmare of control, manipulation, and ultimately, destruction. The seeds of tragedy were sown in the fertile ground of utopian ideals, nurtured by fear and blind faith. The temple's journey, from its humble beginnings in Indiana to its devastating end in Guyana, was just beginning. Jim Jones was a man of profound contradictions, a figure shrouded in complexity. He presented different faces to different people, making him an enigma even to those closest to him. Savior to some who saw him as a beacon of hope, and a ruthless tyrant to others, who experienced his darker side. His charisma filled rooms, captivating audiences with his powerful oratory and magnetic presence. His sermons promised miracles and healing, often carefully staged performances designed to inspire unwavering faith and devotion. These spectacles were key to maintaining his control. To the desperate and vulnerable seeking solace and answers, these acts were irrefutable proof of his divinity, a sign that he was truly sent to guide them. Publicly, he cultivated an image as a champion for the marginalized, fighting for equality and justice, which earned him political appointments and widespread respect within the community. This carefully constructed legitimacy shielded the temple from outside scrutiny, allowing its darker practices to remain hidden from the world. Privately, however, Jones was consumed by paranoia and increasingly manipulative, his behavior growing more erratic and controlling. He demanded absolute loyalty from his followers, brooking no dissent, and punishing any perceived disloyalty with public humiliation, psychological manipulation, and outright abuse. He systematically controlled every aspect of his followers' lives, dictating their relationships, their thoughts, and isolating them from any dissenting voices or influences from the outside world. He went so far as to claim to be the reincarnation of both Jesus and Lenin, a bizarre and blasphemous assertion designed to elevate his status. This self-proclaimed divinity made his authority unquestionable in the eyes of his devoted followers, solidifying his absolute power over them. This disturbing duality, the compassionate leader presented to the world and the ruthless dictator behind closed doors, kept his followers constantly off balance, emotionally dependent, and vulnerable to his whims. The temple, for these individuals, became their entire reality, their only source of community and support, with Jones positioned as their sole protector and provider. He meticulously molded his followers into extensions of his own will, shaping their beliefs and behaviors and ensuring they were ready to follow him anywhere, no matter the cost. The line between genuine faith and paralyzing fear became increasingly blurred, binding the group ever tighter to Jones and his increasingly dangerous ideology. The stage was now irrevocably set for an unimaginable disaster, a tragedy waiting to unfold. The People's Temple, under the charismatic but ultimately destructive leadership of Jim Jones, grew through calculated and insidious recruitment strategies. Their methods were designed to lure in vulnerable individuals and bind them tightly to the temple's cause. It started with seemingly innocent invitations to lively, engaging services and welcoming community dinners, offering a sense of warmth, acceptance, and belonging that many craved. These gatherings were carefully orchestrated to present an image of unity and joy. Visitors saw a diverse and seemingly joyful community, a place where people of all backgrounds were embraced. They were drawn in by the promise of acceptance, the allure of a shared purpose, and the feeling of being part of something larger than themselves. Once inside, however, recruits were gradually subjected to psychological manipulation. Sermons were carefully tailored to resonate with their individual fears, anxieties, and deepest hopes, creating a sense of personal connection with Jones. Jones promised a utopian world free from the pervasive problems of poverty, injustice, and inequality, skillfully creating an us versus them mentality that fostered loyalty and dependence on him and the temple. Members were made to feel chosen, special, and deeply bonded by a shared sense of purpose and a common enemy, strengthening their commitment to the group and its leader. The temple demanded significant financial commitment from its members, homes, savings, inheritances, even social security checks, gradually stripping them of their resources and making escape increasingly difficult and daunting. Confessions made during intense group therapy sessions, often involving deeply personal and potentially damaging information, were secretly recorded and later used as a tool for blackmail and control. Recruiters specifically targeted the vulnerable, preying on the lonely, the poor, the lost, and those searching for meaning and connection in their lives. They showered newcomers with overwhelming displays of love and attention, a tactic known as love bombing, offering them a ready-made family and a sense of instant belonging. For those who felt they had nothing, the temple offered everything they desperately needed, or so it seemed: food, housing, a supportive community, and a clear purpose in life. But beneath the veneer of kindness and generosity was a calculated system of coercion, designed to trap people in a complex web of dependency and control. The temple's recruitment strategy was a chilling masterclass in manipulation and control. Once fully inside, leaving became nearly impossible due to psychological manipulation, financial dependence, and fear of retribution. The initial promise of belonging and a better life ultimately devolved into a suffocating prison, both physical and psychological. Why did thousands join the People's Temple? It wasn't ignorance or weakness. Many were idealists, drawn by the promise of equality and justice in a divided era. For African Americans, the temple was a sanctuary from racism, a place of empowerment and leadership. Others found family and belonging, escaping loneliness and isolation. The temple cared for its members from cradle to grave, creating deep loyalty and dependence. Faith played a role. Miraculous healings, staged or not, convinced many of Jones's divinity. Over time, faith in God shifted to faith in Jones himself, He became the object of worship, the answer to their problems. The temple was a complex community, united by hope and ultimately betrayed by its leader. Belief in Jones was the glue that held them together, even as darkness closed in. The dream of utopia blinded them to the growing nightmare. Their faith would be their undoing. As scrutiny mounted in California, Jones sought escape, not reform. He revived apocalyptic warnings urging followers to build a new Eden in Guyana. The Guyanese government welcomed the temple's investment, granting them land deep in the jungle. The move was framed as a pioneering adventure, a chance to build paradise from scratch. Families sold everything, boarded planes, and arrived with little more than hope. Children were sometimes sent ahead, ensuring parents would follow. The journey was a test of faith, a final break from the old world. In Guyana, Jones's control became absolute. Passports confiscated, communications censored, escape impossible. Surrounded by jungle and armed guards, the temple became a closed society. The dream of utopia had become a prison. Jones had his kingdom, and his followers were trapped within it. The isolation was complete. The stage was set for tragedy. Jonestown promised paradise, but reality was harsh. Members toiled long hours in the heat, surviving on meager rations, while Jones and his inner circle lived comfortably. Jones's voice blared day and night, keeping the community in a state of fear and exhaustion. Nightly meetings brought public humiliation and physical punishment. The jungle was both barrier and prison, patrolled by armed guards. Jones staged fake attacks and loyalty tests, white nights, forcing members to drink what they believed was poison. Despite moments of community and pride, fear and deception ruled. The sense of togetherness was built on control and lies. Jones's paranoia grew, and so did the oppression. Jonestown was a fragile piece, dependent on one man's whims. The dream was dead, only the cage remained. In Jonestown, Jones was God, and his paradise, a nightmare. The community's hope had become its undoing. By 1978, Jonestown's facade was cracking. Escaped members and desperate relatives pushed for a U.S. investigation. Congressman Leo Ryan led a fact-finding mission, arriving with journalists and concerned family members. Jones staged a show of happiness, but cracks appeared as residents secretly begged for help. The illusion of unity collapsed as more members asked to leave. Tension mounted. Jones grew agitated, seeing betrayal everywhere. The visit, meant to clear his name, became a threat to his control. As the delegation prepared to depart, the atmosphere turned volatile. The stage was set for violence. Jonestown was on the brink of catastrophe. The final hours began at the Port Kaituma airstrip. As Ryan's group and defectors prepared to leave, Jones's guards attacked, killing Ryan and 4 others. Back at Jonestown, Jones gathered his followers, claiming the outside world would destroy them. He urged revolutionary suicide. To die together rather than face imagined horrors. Poisoned grape drink was prepared. Children were killed first, then adults. Armed guards ensured no one escaped. Cries and resistance were recorded on a chilling audio tape. Over 900 people died, families together in their final moments. It was not mass suicide but mass murder, orchestrated by Jones. He died from a gunshot wound, his empire in ruins. The promise of salvation ended in horror. Jonestown became a symbol of blind obedience gone deadly. The world was left to reckon with the unimaginable. The tragedy was complete. The dream was forever lost in the jungle. When authorities arrived, they found over 900 dead, a scene of unspeakable loss. Jonestown became synonymous with the dangers of cults and charismatic leaders. The tragedy forced a global reckoning with belief, manipulation, and the search for belonging. Drinking the Kool-Aid entered the lexicon as a warning against blind obedience. Survivors faced lifelong trauma and stigma, haunted by the loss of family and faith. Investigations sought to understand how hope turned to horror. The temple's story became a cautionary tale about unchecked power and betrayed ideals. Memorials now honor the victims, reminding us they were more than statistics. Jonestown's legacy is a somber warning. Beware those who promise paradise at the cost of your soul. The silence of Jonestown echoes, a lesson for generations to come.